So today I want to talk to you guys about the GMKtec G3 mini PC. Now I just got this in and I've been using it for the last few days. This is rocking an Intel N100 Alder Lake N CPU. So what that means is that it is one of those ultra low power all E-core configurations. It is 4 E-core. It is very similar to the N95, which we also took a look at in another GMKtec system. Key differences, of course, being that this has a stock TDP of 6 watts and this has a stock TDP of 15 watts. On paper, though, specs are almost identical between the two, though another key difference is the fact that this has a 16 execution units version of the Intel HD graphics, while this has 24 execution units. It does end up giving that iGPU a clock speed of 1.4 gigahertz, while this is at 750 megahertz. Now, with that said, you will find N95 and N100 systems to be available at around the same price a lot of the time. Usually there'll be small differences between the two. In general, performance between the two chips is practically identical, at least in terms of the CPU. There are some differences in terms of the iGPU, but neither one of them is really going to be that powerful that it's going to make a difference in terms of the choice that you make on what to buy. Both of them, of course, being Intel systems, do come with the benefit of the Intel built-in encoder decoder engine. Is pretty much leading class and very widely supported, so a lot of things are going to take advantage of the hardware acceleration that is available on these chips. And it's part of what makes them really viable options in terms of not just day-to-day computers, but I personally love using these systems as servers. Pretty much what we're going to end up doing with this actual system. And I took a look at it also running on a Windows desktop, since that is what it came with installed. And this does only have 8 gigabytes of RAM and it is single channel. Unfortunately, that was one of those artificial limitations that Intel decided to put on their Alder Lake N chips for some reason. Previous Celerons did not have this problem. This is a new addition. Now, it really does annoy me though, because overall the performance that you can get out of these is pretty decent. We're looking at about Skylake i5 levels of performance, and Skylake is still perfectly fine to this day. With these you get improved efficiency and some extra goodies, at least on the GMKtec G3, because one of the key selling features for it, at least for me, in comparison to the G1, is the inclusion of a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port. Personally, I found this to be one of the best additions that it has, and in general means that it is going to serve really well for the purpose that I have it now for, which is essentially being my new home server. Now, there's an asterisk to that. My current home server, and I might have shown it before on another video that you might have seen, but it is running on an Intel Celeron G3933. This is a KB Lake Celeron that I managed to actually get a few years ago from a mining system that was being essentially parted out for practically nothing. I might have paid somewhere around $30 for the motherboard, CPU, and 2 sticks of RAM. And for multiple years now, it has served perfectly fine as my Unraid server. Now, yes, you might be freaking out right now. I do use Unraid. I know that things like TrueNAS and Proxmox and all kinds of configurations like that are extremely popular. A lot of people don't like the fact that TrueNAS is a paid operating system. I can understand all of those frustrations, but Unraid is very simple to use, very easy to set up, and really the most important thing to me is just how dead easy it is to expand on it. I just throw another drive in there and I'm pretty much good to go. And that flexibility has been very useful over the years. I don't really feel like shelling out $600 to buy a whole bunch of drives and then hope that I just have enough storage for the next few years before I have to rethink how I'm going to expand off of it. It's so much better when I'm able to just go to Best Buy, pick up an external hard drive and just chuck it and throw it in there, and I now just have more storage. So all this shilling and defending of Unraid must have you thinking, well, what are you going to do with this? Like, how is this going to replace that? And for the most part, it's going to replace all of the extra services that run on that system. I'm still going to keep it. It's still going to keep running. It's just now, instead of being my Plex server, my Pi-hole, and a bunch of random little services that I also run on there, all of that is getting moved onto here for the most part. There's a lot of asterisks to this move because of the fact that it is, for the most part, a major change. But I'm pretty much done with Plex at this point, and this is going to be another off-topic rant, but this should show you how big of an impact getting the system has been to my day-to-day computing experience. But Plex has just caused me so many issues with all of the unnecessary features that they've introduced over the years. Things like integration with free and premium streaming services that now, when you're searching for things, end up clogging up the feed. So it ends up very confusing for people that have become accustomed to using Plex in a different way. And all of a sudden, when they just try to watch a movie, it's asking them to log into an account or pay for something. This has led to a lot of headaches and a lot of issues. And considering that I am a paying customer of theirs, I think the fact that the quality of my experience on the service has only degraded as the amount of money that I've given them has increased, I think it's about time that I switch over to Jellyfin, or at least try it out. I've tried it out here and there over the past few months, but I've never had a full long-term deployment. This is going to be it. So the way that it's going to work is that I am more than likely going to be installing Ubuntu server on here, and I'm just going to install Docker and Portainer, and with that I will be setting up a Jellyfin server, and that server is essentially going to get all of the media data from my Unraid server. So over the network, it's just going to be pretty much able to read the shares that are on there that have all of my movies, TV shows, anime, all of that. And it's going to get all scanned into Jellyfin without actually having to be on the local device itself. This is going to do all of the computation. And the fact that it is 2.5 gigabit pretty much means that once I actually upgrade my server to 2.5 gigabit, we're going to be able to take advantage of faster transfer speed. So this is just going to have an overall better connection to the server over there. Now, as I said, the Unraid server is still going to stay on for a while, and Plex is going to remain running on it at least until I can get pretty much everybody on my Plex server transitioned over to Jellyfin successfully. It may turn out that I will have to leave Plex operational for at least some people, but the less load that's put onto there, the better. The iGPU on that system was perfectly capable of pretty much transcoding for everybody, but one of the problems that I was having is that transcoding was perfectly fine, but when subtitles needed to be essentially rendered in and the audio needed to be transcoded, the CPU would essentially fall apart. Specifically, anime and foreign movies were really causing some problems there, and that is pretty much what this is going to solve for me. That is hopefully not going to be a major problem anymore. In the testing that I have done, it has handled those scenarios simulated at least perfectly fine. It makes sense. The improved CPU performance of this does a pretty great job with that task. Now, you might be wondering if in general going with such a low-end chip is going to cause me any problems, and realistically it won't. The main two things that I really care about this running is Jellyfin and Home Assistant, and both of those will run on Raspberry Pi. This is multiple times more powerful than even a Raspberry Pi 5. So what that means is that this is going to have absolutely no problem with anything like that, and it's essentially going to be running at idle most of the time, really. And at idle, this only uses 8 watts from the wall, and at maximum 100% load, we were looking at 25 watts, which this is pretty much never going to be hitting. I will say another thing that I did test out on this was actually using it as a Linux desktop, and it was a pretty great experience. I really liked it. You do need to be sure that you install the Intel hardware acceleration drivers so that you can actually have that enabled and have a great experience on Firefox. Without it, you're relying a lot more on the CPU to do the rendering, and that is going to be a problem. I did try it on Ubuntu, and I did try it also on MX Linux, and both were a great experience. MX Linux in particular was an absolute joy to use. I'm a big fan of MX, and I think that it really pairs really well with a system like this if you just want something extremely low power, extremely light, and you want it to still feel super snappy. Pretty much the limitations that come from this being single channel RAM kind of go away when you're using MX, and I was actually really impressed by all that. But of course, As I said, this is going to be getting Ubuntu Linux installed on it, and we are going to be setting up Docker and Portainer on here. Now, I just wanted to give you guys my first impressions of using this for the past few days. Just trying out as a day-to-day system, both on Windows and on Linux, and I gotta say, I really liked it. But you want to see the coolest feature of this thing that I actually really like, and it is pretty much the best thing that I've seen of any GMKtec product so far. Look at that. An easily removable top cover that lets you access to the RAM and the SSD, which as you can see is all easily upgradable. We even get an extra little slot here that lets you put in an extra pretty much PCIe anything. Keep in mind though that you are going to be very limited in terms of lane, so you can put another SSD here, but just keep in mind that it is not going to be utilizing its full 100% speed due to the limitation in lane speed that these systems also have. Another limitation that I really hate that Intel put in, but I really like that aspect of it. Very easy to pop off and pop back on. Now, overall, the construction of the system is plastic, though it feels perfectly fine in the hand. It's nothing remarkable. I do like the construction of the G1 more in general, though I don't like the glossy top. I do like the metal trimming, but that was a far bigger pain to open up and upgrade in comparison to this, where this is just literally perfection. I loved it. And that's pretty much why I'm going to actually be deploying this. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. We are going to be looking at installing Ubuntu server on here, setting up Portainer, and actually installing Jellyfin and Home Assistant on here. That's essentially going to be the main full review because that's what I want to actually use this thing for. If you're interested in actually picking one of these up and using it for something similar like what I'm doing, check out the links down below. I'll see you guys next time.